everybody to the Climate Action Living Lab information session. I would like to start by acknowledging the country that I'm on and the various countries that we're all calling in from today, and paying our respects to elders past and present. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as the first peoples and as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we work and live, and also acknowledge all their work in the climate action space as well, and keep that in the front of our minds as we're talking about climate action today. So we're going to cover a few bits and pieces today, what the purpose of the Climate Action Living Lab is, the key dates, grant eligibility, the submission and assessment process, as well as what projects can be funded through the grant, and finally the application form itself. Hopefully that sounds good to everyone. So a few just general housekeeping bits and pieces as well. So you, as I said, ask questions anytime through the Q&A function or the chat. And Nikki will try to get back to you. We cannot give direct feedback on your project or application, but we can help with talking about eligibility, the application process and the timeline associated with that, and the trials themselves. As I said, the session will be recorded and all the resources will be shared with you afterwards. And the chat is not always available to everyone after the meeting, so hopefully we can answer all of those questions today and send a bit of a follow-up resource so all your answers will be easily accessible. Okay, so let's get into Living Lab. First of all, what is a Living Lab? And we have a little video here that should explain, and I think I've shared my sound. Let me know if it doesn't come through clearly. So let's see.
Casey's Living Labs is in response to communities' expectation of solving more complex problems than ever before, a lot faster, and with more constraints on budgets. So a Living Lab enables us to collaborate with community, work with community to understand what issues are highest priority for them, but also enables us to engage with potential solution partners with community and test those potential solutions before we go and expend large sums of money in scaling up solutions across the city of Casey. A Living Lab is a physical or a virtual environment where we can test early stage concept solutions for complex problems. It enables us an environment to engage with community, to solicit their response of a particular potential solution or solutions across the city of Casey. And they will vary for different Living Labs as we start to unravel particular problems and implement solutions that might be feasible. Partnerships are crucial to the success of a Living Lab. Without partners, we wouldn't be able to solve some of these problems on our own. Some of these problems are extremely complex. Some of the root causes are insidious. So to try and explore and gain more information about these problems, we need to iterate, and our partners who have expertise, technology, knowledge, experience in particular fields enables us to tap into that in concert with community and our infrastructure to identify what solutions might be in the medium to long term.
Great. So if I can get back to my slides when I would like, there we go. So that's a bit of an explanation of Living Lab, but essentially bringing on partners to help us solve complex problems and trialling new solutions. And this particular one will have 12 to 14 months to trial those solutions, which is exciting because previous Living Labs have been a bit shorter with their trials. So I've got a little bit longer this time, which is wonderful. So there are 3 focus areas of the Climate Action Living Lab. The first is sustainability and biodiversity, with the challenge statement of how might we protect and increase native vegetation and animal habitat. The second is safety and climate resilience. How might we ensure the safety and well-being of the community during and after extreme weather events? And the third is renewable energy. how might we increase the uptake of renewable energy for the community. And you can also read the challenge brief for more details, and I'll share that afterwards as well. So key dates. The grant officially opened yesterday and is open for applications all the way through to the 22nd of September. And following that, we will have the selection phase. So we'll have some council officers evaluating the applications throughout October. And then in November, we will let all applicants know the outcome of their grant application. We'll start with the successful candidates. We'll be going through due diligence, initiating the funding agreement process, and confirming the start date of the projects. Around January next year is when we expect the trials to start, and then run for 12 to 14 months, wrapping up in February 2026 with a closing event in April 2026. So who is eligible to apply for this grant? You must be a legal entity. So that's, an incorporated association, cooperative, company or trust. We would like businesses, not-for-profit organisations or research institutes to apply, and you will need to be registered for at least 2 years. And more details again in the grant guidelines, which will be shared afterwards. In terms of the support available, so there's up to $20,000 available for smaller projects, and that requires a one-to-one contribution, but there's no financial contribution expected from the applicant. It's just in-kind contribution. So donating goods and services up to the value of the amount you're requesting, up to $20,000. And from $20,001 to $50,000, it's a one-to-one contribution as well from the applicant, which needs to be 50% of that needs to be financial plus in-kind contribution, so matching the amount that you are asking for. You can also request in-kind support only if you just need access to council buildings or facilities, access to our assets, but you don't actually require any financial contributions. So those are the different types of support available from us. What projects can be funded? So any sort of pilot project, event, community activation, or applied research projects that can address one or more of the key challenges. We need projects that can start within a month after the grant agreement sign off and can produce outcomes within that 12 to 14 month period and within the City of Casey. So here's some useful information. So the challenge brief and grant guidelines have a lot more detail about what we're after, including the assessment criteria. And in terms of the strategies that we'd like solutions to align to, we've got the climate action plan, our environment strategy and council plan as well. We have the grant website itself that has some additional information, and of course the SmartyGrants website, which is where you will apply for the grant. So all these will be shared with you afterwards. In terms of the actual SmartyGrants platform, which is what we use for all of our grants here at City of Casey, you can create an account via the website. Make sure to save your applications along the way because it doesn't auto-save. So just importantly, keep clicking that save button as you go. You don't want to lose any of your work. Make sure you fill out all of the mandatory fields. You'll see they have a little red star next to them, all those required fields. Make sure you stay within the word limits. They'll be written under each section what the word limit is. Make sure you'll have plenty of time to write and upload those attachments and submit, because you cannot submit applications any later than 11:59 p.m, just before midnight, on Sunday the 22nd of September. And once it's submitted, it cannot be edited, so make sure you check everything before you hit submit. Some tips for project writing. So just really make sure that you clearly address the problem. So whichever ones you are focusing on, whether it's sustainability and biodiversity, safety and climate resilience, and or renewable energy, and how your project is going to provide a solution to that problem. Make sure you cover how you're going to test, validate and measure the success of your trial, and of course make sure you review the detailed assessment criteria. So their focuses on community desirability, project viability and feasibility, as well as innovation potential and local business enhancement, and just make sure that your proposal addresses those assessment criteria. In terms of grant writing generally, make sure you review the information you need to submit. You can preview the SmartyGrants form, which we'll do today, so you can do that yourself as well and really take your time to look at what's required so you can collate all that information before you put in a formal submission. Make sure you write in a nice, clear, concise manner, answering questions in full. There are websites and plugins like Grammarly that can help with correcting grammar and improving clarity if you think that could be helpful for you. Assume that the assessors are not experts in your field, so avoid, jargon, acronyms, or if you do use them, make sure you explain what they mean. And find someone external to review your application before submitting. That can be really helpful to make sure that you don't have any implied sort of assumptions in there for someone who might not be an expert. Also, make sure you're not submitting at the last minute. As I mentioned before, late submissions will not be accepted, and try to use the form to submit your answers. There are options to submit attachments within it, but if you can answer as much information as you can within the form, that would be great. Selection process. So we will process them to determine eligibility and assess them against the criteria. That'll be done by City of Casey officers, and we'll come up with a shortlist. We may contact you if we need more information within, if there's something missing in the form, if we just need a little bit more clarity. So that'll be happening throughout October. We'll notify everyone of the outcome via email in November, and then in December we'll kick off that due diligence and funding agreement process. Okay, so now let's go through the application form itself. So this is, again, as I mentioned, via SmartyGrants. Before I do that, any burning questions, Nikki, that have come up at all that we need to address, or we're good so far?
All good so far.
Cool. Great. Okay, so Climate Action Living Lab. Also, I just want to, before I go into the form, I briefly want to touch on, there's a link in the slides, and we'll share this as well, that just provides a little bit more information about what in-kind contributions refer to. So yeah, anything that's voluntary labour, donated goods, donated services, and how you calculate that as well. So there's some good tips on this website. So if that's something you'd like a little bit more information on, we'll share that link too. All right, without further ado, let's get into the form. So this is available. You can visit casey.vic.gov.au/climate action living lab grant. We'll share it afterwards as well. All the information's here, and there's the apply via SmartyGrants button. That will take you to the SmartyGrants website. You will see this. Within current rounds is the Climate Action Living Lab. And then it will go into the form. So if you actually want to start a submission, you do it here. You can download the form beforehand as well if you'd like to have a look through, or you can just preview it through your browser, which is what we're going to do today. So the first section is just a pre-application checklist. Basically, you need to meet all of these criteria to be able to be eligible for the form, for the grant. So it's worth looking through all of this and ticking it off first so that you don't go through the entire application process and then you may be ineligible. So it's just that you've read the grant guidelines, that you're a registered business or legal entity, you've been registered for more than 2 years, that you are not associated with any political party or group, you're not a state or federal government agency or department or public entity, you're not representing another council, you're not a catchment management authority, or you're not under an auspice arrangement. So we also have that your project could take place inside City of Casey. So you don't have to be based in City of Casey, you just have to be able to run the trial within City of Casey. That you can be completed within 12 to 14 months, that you'll be able to commence within 1 month of formal approval, and that you're not seeking funding for feasibility studies, development of a new concept with low feasibility, cost to build, ongoing operational costs, administrative costs, projects already funded by council, or any sort of your own grant programs, prizes, awards, donations, or reimbursement for retrospective works or existing work unrelated to the project. So all of this, ideally you are answering yes to. That will mean that you are eligible. The next section is just your organisation details, fairly straightforward. The name of the organisation, address, the category of your organisation, a brief description of your activities when you're established, the size, so roughly how many employees or volunteers you have, and your ABN. If you don't have an ABN, you can complete and upload a statement of supplier form. So the links to all of that is here within the ATO website, and just the key contact person. So we might be reaching out to you for more information. So it's ideal that you have a contact person who does work full time or who we can contact most of the time to get that information in a timely manner. The next section is due diligence. So this is more around public liability insurance and professional indemnity insurance. So for public liability, we do require a minimum of $20 million public liability insurance coverage. If you don't have that, that's okay. You just need to indicate that you're willing to obtain it if you are successful. Similarly, for professional indemnity insurance, this is just required for organisations that provide professional advice, so sort of consultancy advice and things like that. That's a minimum of $5 million coverage required for professional indemnity insurance. And again, as long as you're willing to obtain it if successful and if required, so if it's relevant to your solution. Work cover insurance as well, and then any perceived actual potential perceived conflicts of interest is down the bottom section there. The next is around the project itself. So we've got the 3 challenge statements there. So just selecting which of those your solution will address. You can just select one or multiple. It's up to you, whatever is relevant for your solution. A title, a bit of a summary of what you're proposing to trial over the 12 to 14 months, and outline of the scope. So what will be included and what will be excluded as well. So just trying to keep that really clear for us so we know exactly what you are going to be addressing. The next is community desirability. So as we said, we want applicants that can operate within the City of Casey. We want strong alignment to our council plan, environment strategy and climate action plan, and all the links are there. We want a demonstration that the solution you're proposing will meet community needs, an explanation of how it will solve the problem, including outcomes and benefits, and also evidence that the solution will produce the expected results. And we want those project success metrics identified as well. So how are you going to measure the success of your solution? So can it operate within City of Casey? How does it align with the council plan and strategies, specifically the strategies I mentioned earlier? So environment strategy and climate action plan. And you'll see we've got the word counts there as well. So you'll see the limits, describe how your project will meet community needs. And so this is, you can talk about what the specific needs are of the Casey community and how your solution will address that, and then describing how it addresses the challenge statements that you've selected earlier around whether it's renewable energy, sustainability and biodiversity, or safety and climate resilience, and those expected outcomes and benefits, and then the metrics you'll put in here and how you'll measure success of your trial. If you want, there's the option to attach a file here with any community documentation to support your proposal. So if there's a petition or letter from local organisations or any sort of reports showing community need, you can attach them there. That's not mandatory, but if you do have them, that will help us to validate that community need. And I might just even zoom in a little bit because I feel it might be a bit small for you viewing online. Next section is the project viability. So this is more about the budget for your project. So you'll select which category of grant funding you're applying for based on the financial ask that you have. So whether it's up to $20,000 or between $20,001 and $50,000, or if you're just requesting in-kind support, like we mentioned, access to council buildings and facilities and so on. Now, here is an example which you can have a good look at. It might be helpful. So basically, we want to know what you are requesting from us in terms of your financial request, and then what you'll be contributing financially. So if you are doing a funding request of less than $20,000, we don't need any cash contribution there. You'll just be putting in your in-kind contribution to match 1-for-1 what your ask is with your in-kind contribution. If you are asking for $20,001 to $50,000, we want like at least half, at least 50% of what you're asking from us financially to be also matched by your own financial contribution, and then the rest in kind contributions. So yeah, donating goods and services and so on. So this provides a good example here. So you just put your expenditure items in down the left-hand column, the request from us, and this is excluding GST. In this column is your cash contributions for the various items and the in-kind contributions. This will automatically calculate totals, so you don't need to do that yourself. This will be done here. And if you are just requesting in-kind from us, or if any part of your needs is around requesting in-kind support from council, you can put this in here. Now, the assessment panel may recommend partial funding for your solution. So this is up to you to decide if this is something that you would consider. And if you were open to that, what is the minimum amount you would require for your solution to still take place? And potentially what changes would you need to make, if any? So it's up to you if this is something you want to consider or not. And then we have project feasibility. So this is focusing more on the project plan itself. We're looking for a feasible and comprehensive project plan. We want to make sure those risks have been identified and you have a plan in place for those potential risks. An ability to manage data, technology and privacy if that's relevant to your solution, and also evidence that you have some experience in delivering this type of work. So the first section is your project plan. These are your key milestones, deliverables, and the approximate timeframe for your project. If you want to submit a more comprehensive project plan, there's the option to attach a file here as well. The next section is risks. So just a high-level risk management plan, essentially, what those potential risks and dependencies are, the likelihood, the consequence, and there's drop downs here, and then how you will manage that risk. Finally, we've got around the data, technology and privacy risk management plan. So if it's required, if relevant to your solution, you can select here. And then the last question is about the actual project team. So no, this is not so much about the project, it's about the team that will be delivering it and their ability to deliver it. So any experience and expertise that you have within your team to deliver this solution, you'd put it in here. Then the last assessment criteria is innovation potential and local business enhancement. So we are looking for innovative solutions, things that haven't been tested before, things that are new. We are looking for ideally solutions that integrate data and insights to inform the work, and also that applicants, if they're based in Casey, they will be favoured. So this isn't mandatory. Any Australian organisation is eligible to apply, but local providers will be favoured to maximise benefits for the local Casey community. So you can pop this in here and how you'll use innovative approaches, including data and insights to inform your solution, if you're based in Casey or not. And again, as long as you're an Australian organisation, you can apply. This isn't mandatory, but we will favour these to benefit our local economy. And then the last couple of sections are pretty straightforward. Feedback, just how you heard about the grant, any contact you've made with City of Casey, and any feedback you have about the form or the process. And then the declaration, just that you are making this on behalf of your organisation. You confirm the details and attachments to be accurate and correct. You agree to the standard conditions in the grants policy. So there's a link there that you can view the grants policy, but this is mainly around that acquittal will be due within 60 days of completion of the project. And that you give permission for us to share your contact details with other council officers who may wish to contact you about other opportunities, and of course just your name and email so we can follow up with you if required. So that is the whole form, and then it's really back to any questions from anyone.
Thanks, Cara. There's no question in the Q&A or chat yet, so anyone who wants to just submit any questions or regarding this grant can do it. Obviously, this is all the process that we're putting in place, and the how to submit and become one of the partners of a living lab in Casey. As Cara said before, this is our 4th living lab. So we have a bit of experience in running this type of public-private partnerships. That's essentially a way for us as council to test and trial solutions in response to problems, needs of our communities, in collaboration with external organizations, whether they are for-profit or not for-profit, and also for us to support startups. So as long as you are a little bit older than 2 years old, as long as your business is 2 years old, we can support you with some funding. As Cara said, we cannot give you feedback directly on your project. I assume that if you're joining this session today, you might have an idea what kind of project you would like to submit your grant for, or maybe you just have an organization that works in this space and you think that there might be some opportunities for your organization to shape a project around council needs when it comes to these key challenge areas. We cannot give you feedback directly on a project, but if you have a type of project in mind, we can tell you whether that's eligible or not. If we want to go back to that slide where you have the 3 domain challenges, maybe we can use some of this time to answer any questions that are related to the process and to the grant, obviously, but also if there's anything regarding these challenge areas that you would like to know more about, is definitely something that we can brief you on and help you maybe understand what our council priorities around these challenges. So that might be good input for shaping up a project if you don't have it in mind yet, or find the best value proposition for your organization to meet these needs in the context of what is essentially a pilot or trial project that runs for like 12 months. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute or pop any questions on the chat. And if you want to considering we have a bit of time, Cara, if you also want to give some information around these challenges, where did they come from? Why did we decide to focus on these? And what are your initial thoughts around the type of pilots that we would like to see around these areas?
Yeah, so we did a lot of research around potential themes for the 4th Living Lab, and this came out really strongly both internally within council and also from the community that climate action was a real priority area. We also had recently published the climate action plan, so it was a very important strategy for the council to deliver on. So we were really keen for this, and then we met with lots of internal subject matter experts to think about what are the challenge statements that we might want to focus on within climate action. We came up with, I think it was about 3 or 4 for each of these key areas, and then we put that out to the community. So we had surveys through KC Conversations, which is our online community engagement platform. We also took it to our Smart City Innovation and Improvement Community Reference Group to validate And these were the 3 how might we challenge statements that were validated by those surveys and by the community reference group. Then I've been meeting since then with lots of internal teams to talk about what are the ideal outcomes for them in each of these areas. So I'm putting together a consolidated document of all those conversations. So I'll share that with everyone who's registered today. But the key findings coming through that are that they really want things that are going to really engage the community and see behavioural change. They're really interested in citizen science, anything, that's really going to get the community on board, but that's going to be sustainable as well in the long term. Anything around education as well has been coming through as a theme. Ways to engage, especially for sustainability and biodiversity, private landholders, how around revegetation, but also how can we optimise public land and things like revegetation in equestrian trails and easements, even nature strips. So looking at that as well and getting quite creative around our revegetation and protecting habitat as well and thinking about that. So I will share all the information from those teams around what's been coming through for each of these areas. But it's quite broad. So I'll share it with everyone. Might inform the types of solutions you want to apply with.
Around sustainability and biodiversity, for those of you that are not from or based in Casey or live in Casey, we're a growth corridor. We're growing so fast. The population is growing very fast. We're building a lot. So I guess for us, the challenge is how do we ensure that we have those green areas, and then we continue to address the local temperatures and our microclimate, as in parallel we continue to build for a growing population. It's a challenge that it's very different from the city of Melbourne. Like, we're not in the CBD. We are in a completely different area that used to be farmland, and now it's turning into like more like higher density area. So that's where we're at. That's the context, I guess, in which we place ourselves, which again is very different from different councils that are in more urban areas, that are completely in rural areas. And around safety and climate resilience, I think we've been working a lot with the emergency response team. There are a lot of challenges that come at times of climate events. We know that climate events are going to be more and more likely to happen in the future. So I guess there's a lot there to explore around how do we better predict those? How do we better address them? And the population in Casey right now, it's growing very fast, and we're one of the most diverse councils in Victoria, right? So I guess the unique placement or the unique environment where we're in when we talk about safety and climate resilience, it's a lot about how do we address these for a population that is growing and extremely diverse. There are so many languages spoken, so even providing information in different languages is a massive challenge, right? Or ensuring that we respond more proactively to climate events in the future, because we know that unfortunately we're heading that way. And on the renewable energy, I believe that there's a lot of programs already published and available online that anybody can research on. City of Casey has been quite proactive. Our sustainability team has been very proactive around reducing emissions and around electrifying everything, shifting away from gas. So I think there's a lot of initiatives that are already available for anyone who wants to research that and see what could be the next step. Is there anything else around these challenges, Cara, that you wanted to add to provide some initial context, I guess, for those that are not from Casey?
Yeah, I'm just looking through my draft of the list of all the outcomes that different teams have asked for, so I can just give people a bit of a sneak peek before I finalise it. So just high level going through it. People are the teams are really keen to investigate trials that are something that we couldn't easily do by ourselves as a council. That keeps coming through. They really want things that are really going to be made possible through these partnerships. They're interested in testing technology that's perhaps not commonly accepted in the market currently, or that's something testing new technologies. In renewable energy, they've said they're interested in involving people in community networks, microgrids, community neighbourhood batteries, virtual energy grids, things around electrification, as Nikki mentioned, getting off gas and reducing barriers to electrifying homes and community facilities, around solar and renewables in general, just increasing, raising awareness, especially working with our culturally and linguistically diverse communities. So connecting with them and getting them to understand the benefits of going to solar and renewable energy. Interested in exploring potentially tidal energy, hydro energy, and advocating to improve return on investment for moving to solar. For safety and climate resilience, really interested in ways to work more effectively with vulnerable groups. So again, our culturally and linguistically diverse community, our ageing population as well, young people, really interested in something that's community driven, community led, thinking about how we build back better. So like replacing storm and fire damaged buildings with improved facilities, helping individuals and families to be more prepared, really keen for tangible behaviour change in the community, change at a family level, household level to prepare for emergency risks, so heat waves, bushfires, floods, things around support for at-risk communities, a strength-based approach, so looking at what we're already doing that we can strengthen, working with new estates, so building resilience in new communities and new arrivals in Casey, and supporting women as well. Thinking about public open spaces redesign, so whether that's greening, canopy cover, shade, playgrounds that you could manage high temperatures. For sustainability and biodiversity, we talked about water-sensitive urban design, greening and rehydrating, waterway health, protecting endangered species, encouraging education around encouraging residents, private landholders and new folks in estates, and also developers to plant natives of biodiversity-friendly plants and wildlife-friendly gardens, so attracting birds and bees and having the right plant for the right area, for example, drought-friendly plants. Thinking about our bees and pollinators, so yeah, whether that's bee-friendly gardens, beehives, education around that. Talking about planting and easements, so power line and water easements, planning on nature strips, focusing on bandicoots. So we've got endangered bandicoots in Casey, so talking about their habitat, thinking about how we can get private landholders to revegetate and protect and enhance habitat, even thinking about private schools, golf courses, kindergartens, revegetating in those areas and managing pests and predators. Keen for citizen science, looking for gaps in habitat. So where is remaining habitat? Where are the gaps and how do we connect those existing habitats? Potentially supporting land care groups and friends of groups, things that will support biodiversity like nest boxes, insect hotels, bandicoot bungalows and pollinator gardens. We want to increase understory vegetation as well as canopy coverage, protecting rare and endangered plants, and even thinking about wildlife rescue as well, and developing materials that council can use for education as well. So that's just a few of the high level items that have come through from teams, but I'll consolidate that down neatly and share that with everyone afterwards.
Yeah, there's no shortage of problems, let's put it that way, to solve. And it's such a broad, there's such a significant breadth and diversity of problems that are very conducive for a large variety of responses, right? You can go anywhere from testing some form of technology to address these problems to projects that are more strongly focused on engaging the community, especially tackling these the strong linguistic and cultural diversity that it's part of the fabric of our community. So there's definitely no shortage of problems to address. It would all come down to really proposals that have a very clear link between the problem and the solution that you're trying to propose in response to that. Because these pilots are last for a year, which in the big scheme of things is not a long time, we have a very strong focus on data-driven and outcome-focused projects. So my suggestion in applying for this is you don't have to address everything. You can be very targeted with the scope of the problem that you're trying to address, as long as there's a very clear link between the problem, and we want to understand the scale of that problem. So any baseline data available online, or any reference to the strategic goals that Casey is trying to pursue is a good way to start from, so that we know that you're solving a problem that it's high priority, or we understand the scale of the problem you're trying to address, and trying to match your response with an approach that not only proposes a series of activities that your organization can deliver, but also has a clear methodology for measuring outcomes and for measuring results. This is easier when it comes to technology, because usually any kind of app or platform has a variety of forms of data gathering that can really give you a sense of, can give you a series of quantitative and qualitative metrics that to evaluate your response. For example, if you test, we tested in the past the coffee ground collection through Reground, that was funded through the Circular Economy Living Lab. They onboarded a specific number of cafes in Casey. They established this collection process, and then what they do is donating these coffee grounds to community gardens or private gardeners. So it's very easy to quantify how many cafes are onboarded, how many kilos of coffee ground waste is diverted. It's easy to calculate the corresponding emission prevention, and it also creates a great link that it's more social, so that it can connect to community gardens network that we have in Casey, community groups. So there's also an element of behavioral change to it. So the more you're able to embed forms of measuring across your trial, the better. And speaking of behavioral change, that's probably the hardest part, right? A lot of the community engagement that we do is highly qualitative. We cannot track behavioral change in such a short amount of time. 6 months, 12 months pilot would not enable those long-term behavioral changes, because it's an inherently social long-term issue, and oftentimes in response to wicked problems. So it's not easy to measure behavioral change, and we acknowledge that. But we appreciate any form of, so if your project is more engagement focused, I guess my point is, and you don't have forms of analytical analysis and tracking of your results, I would try to establish a robust methodology for engagement that can still give a mix of quantitative and qualitative outcomes at the end of your trial. And whereas behavioral change is a long-term challenge, 12 months should be enough at least to establish a baseline and give us some knowledge that then council can build upon in the future years. I'm not sure if these could be helpful as well, but the Living Lab process, although it's a grant, happens very much hand in hand with Cara and I, with the Smart City Innovation Improvement team. We don't give the funding and see you in 12 months. Once you receive the funding, if you're successful, we organize workshops and engagement sessions with council, key council team members that are subject matter experts in your field and that are responsible for pursuing sustainability and biodiversity initiatives or address safety and climate resilience programs, so that you get to speak to the people in council that can help you give direction. We also run individual project plan workshops. So once we have those conversations with council, we go back and we have one-to-one sessions with you. So the scope of your project might be refined based on what we found. And then we establish some touch points along the way. So the connection and the in-kind support of Kara's time and my time, it's kind of a given. If you're successful and you deliver, we establish some check-ins, periodic check-ins with different options for you to make sure that if you have any barriers or anything that it's not working for you in the process of delivering the project, we can be there and help you along the way. So we're there. I guess that's the point. Don't feel the pressure of having a project that is completely final and packaged and refined. The most important thing is that there's good premises, a clear scope, a clear problem that you're addressing, a clear scope of the project, where you're deciding to operate, and your best option for monitoring and evaluating the results. Everything else we'll discuss together and refine and support in that.
Wonderful. Any final questions or comments from anyone? We must have done a really good job, Nikki.
I don't know. It's a first. The other thing that I was thinking, the last thing I was thinking when you said the projects need to be able to operate in the city of Casey, we are really trying to get more local organizations to be involved. So we encourage local organizations to apply for this, and they will be, they have a little bit of, there's a bit of an assessment criteria that will favor local organizations, because we're really hoping to enable local impact through local stakeholders and organizations. That being said, non-KC based organizations are welcome to apply. From what I've seen in the past, I would just make sure that you don't apply from New South Wales, because if some in-person there will be in-person activities, events and forms of engagement. So even though you don't need to be based here, it will be advisable that you either have a partner or someone that works from Victoria, at the very least, that it's based in Melbourne, even if you are in New South Wales, or just make sure that you have someone on the ground for those times where it's necessary to be in attendance in person to some events, because those events, community events, are great for promoting the work that you're doing when it's in flight, especially, and get a sense of who you're presenting your work to and who you are engaging. Even though your product is a digital product, you will still need to be present and come in person to some events. So I would definitely recommend having someone here on the ground.
Really good point. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. I will share the link to the recording and all the supporting resources via email. And please reach out if you have any questions or need anything in the meantime, smartcity@casey.vic.gov.au. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.